Okay, I have a number of questions here from Elaine McGinn. Elaine McGinn is an artist and she lives down the Ards Peninsula. She trained as an art teacher and then an art therapist. And I met Elaine. She's a member of Beyond Performance Art Collective, and I met Elaine when she participated in Still Bunker that I'm doing down the bottom of St. Martin. So Elaine's read my book and she has a number of questions for me. And here they are. When did you first come to understand or implement the idea of visiting every service, and how did it come about? It came to me over a period of time. I started doing this in 2008, November, December 2008, and at the beginning, you'll see that there's a list at the back of the book of all the churches that I visited, and you'll see at the beginning I didn't go every week. I went now and then, and I was kind of reluctant to actually do it. There was a great reluctancy in it, and as I think I kind of calmed myself into going, or I just calmed myself to keep going back and thinking, what on earth is going on here? So it took me some time, probably about a year into it. I thought, wow, wouldn't this be really amazing if I actually went to every single service in Belfast? It was probably about a year into it. And it wasn't how did it come about? I didn't just wake up one day and say, right, this is what I'm going to do. I was really, really reluctant, and I thought, no, there's no way that I can do this. So it just kind of emerged out of something rather than it wasn't a brainwave. What has been your funniest experience during the project? There's been quite a few. There's been quite a few funny ones. The one in the book that I wrote about was I always say when I'm going to the service that I will, what I'm doing, and often then people will start up a conversation with you. But there was one time that I said that, and the woman that I was talking to just kind of couldn't speak. She was totally shocked by what I was doing, and then she just slowly started to walk backwards against the wall away from me, and couldn't quite think of anything what to say. And it was quite funny at the time. There are other ones, but that's the one that I put in the book. I used to love watching the ministers speak and rocking on their feet. Have you noticed similar approaches to sermons? Speak and rocking on their feet? No, I haven't. I think every priest, minister, pastor, whoever it is, they've all got different styles. So it's quite interesting to watch their styles, but I haven't noticed any feet rocking. Have you ever had the experience of being saved? If so, what was that like for you? I find this is a really weird question. There is a body of church attenders who, and I don't know what era it was. It might have been the 50s of people like coming up to you and saying, "Have you been saved?" And certainly, in my childhood or teenage years, I remember, people that, there's a lot of people around, and that's how they would explain their faith. I always used to wonder what they meant, being saved for what, from what. And I know it is a language of the way of when you're outside of the church. I think of churches, it is a language. I think that can be quite scary. There was one incident in one church whereby I was pointed at in the congregation, and the minister was talking about when he was saved. The minister was sorry, I was just reading the minister was talking about when he was saved, and I remember I was sitting there thinking, okay, I wonder what that felt like at that particular moment. And at that moment, he kind of pointed to me. And I remember just sitting there going, no, you're not getting me to do anything else other than just sit here. So it is a language that, people have, but I prefer not to use that. Did you have any Sunday school excursions? Sunday school excursions that Elaine had were always down Ards Peninsula. Did they ever go to Sunday school, and did we ever go anywhere? No, we didn't. My memory, which kind of runs into another question of, do you remember what's your earliest member of church or Sunday school? Yes, I went to a Sunday school, and I have very strong memories of going to church with all my family and my grandmother. I remember going to Sunday school in the church hall, but my memory is of colouring in pictures of Jesus and disciples, and colouring in was my memory of what Sunday school kind of was about. And no, I have no memory of going anywhere on a trip with the church ever. Elaine says she fell in love with Mrs. Simple, I think maybe it was, who was her Sunday school teacher. Did I ever find anybody like that? I find lots of really interesting people. I found there's a woman in one of the churches on the Donegal Road who was teaching the children a song during a service. And I find her really kind of inspiring. I think there's people, who work really hard and volunteer a lot around their churches, and really, just really kind of inspire the kids. There is the church that's in the Wellington Park Hotel it's like an hour and a half Sunday school before they actually have their service. Now they are from Nigeria. Can't remember what the name of it off the top of my head, but they are an African church. Amazing hymn singing, but I didn't understand when I looked at when it started. But actually, the first hour and a half was their Sunday school. And so I actually sat in on their Sunday school, and there was two young women who were taking that, who were brilliant, and how they were getting all the kids to react. And the kids, at one point, they were having a competition for what it was they were remembering, and they were quite amazing. So yeah, there are inspirational people. Sorry, I've just seen that question. If I'm leaning forward, it's because I'm trying to read them, because you're sending them to me. Are hymns part of every church service? No, they're not. They are of every church service that isn't a Catholic church service. More or less, they are, but not Catholic church services. Um, does that answer your questions? I'm just going to check to see if she's given me any more. Okay, which services would you go back to and why? There's quite a few, actually. There's quite a few services. Which ones in particular? I really like, if I read the book, I really like the Divine Healing services on a Friday afternoon in St. Anne's Cathedral, lunchtime. There's something just very specific and beautiful about them. I really like those. There are some churches that I went back to a couple of times to bring other people or in order to look at. I have, the first time I went into CFC church, it was the first time I'd been in a church like that, and I brought somebody else new to come along to it in order to see it. I've been back to Clonard Monastery a number of times. I've been back to quite a lot of the churches, different occasions. I brought my mother-in-law back to a Baptist. I brought her to a Baptist church because she had not had that experience before, and she's a French Catholic, and people have perceptions about what actually goes on, but I wanted her to see what Baptists were doing now, so I brought her to a service, and she was surprised. Go back up. What has been your largest congregational experience ever? I'm beginning to think, Elaine, you haven't read the book. The biggest congregational experience I've had was St. Peter's Square in Rome. I went to Rome and went to 2 services with the Pope, and that was my biggest experience. And what was quite interesting about that, I write about it in the book, but any crowds that I've been to before of that size have been like for a concert, an outdoor concert. I mean, this mass was outside. So anything I've ever been to with that size, it's for like a concert. But actually to go to and that amount of people who are actually there to go to a church service is a totally different feeling. And particularly if you feel it energetically, like I do, of this kind of combination of people, it was quite awe-inspiring. How has your art background influenced your writing? How has your art background influenced your writing? I suppose to start off with, makes me feel like I'm not a writer. I feel like I'm an artist who writes sometimes. I mean, I write a blog about the art community in Belfast and exhibitions and stuff, but I have written some pieces for newspapers and things, but I don't really feel like I'm a writer. I feel like I'm a visual artist. So to think then, oh, I'm going to write a book, I've had no, I'm not one of those people who's always had an ambition to write a book. it was more that as time went on and as I was doing this, people would keep saying, "Will you write a book?" And I just kind of thought, well, I'm going to rise to the challenge of that. So I suppose it made me think, oh, this is outside of my comfort zone, but it just, it has to be done. And it also made me really think, I mean, I have an awful lot of visuals around this over and beyond what's on the front and the back page of the book. But I had to really struggle and think about, am I putting visuals in this? Am I not? Whatever, because that is a whole other process. And I decided that I wouldn't. And some people are surprised by that, but I decided that I wouldn't. And I think that was a good idea. And I felt like once I had actually, it was a long process to get it to this state. So, but once it actually was out, it actually had come out of me, I felt then I had enough headspace to actually look at the visuals on it. So that is something that I might kind of look at as well, doing.